morning to everybody, not only to the people in the room and the ones we will still come, but also the people who follow us live, because this is web stream. There are many. Thank you very much. As always, you know that you can post your questions or inputs or contributions, and we will relay them, of course, to the speakers and the audience. I am Isolina Boto. I'm the manager of CTA office in Brussels. I'm also, since 2007, when those briefings were launched, the coordinator on behalf of the organizers, who are, of course, CTA, but more importantly, the European Commission, DEFCO, in a close collaboration with other DGs, the ACP Secretariat, who is always welcoming here very, very, nicely in this place, and CONCORD with the platform, European platform for development NGOs in Brussels. And we have, along the 59 Brussels briefings we had so far, of course, welcome other partners as co-organizers and many other people. So I want to thank you. Today we have the number 60, who will be the final, the last one in this particular cycle. So I'm very pleased that, despite being a week of school leave in Brussels, you are so many to join us. I also think that this future of food and agriculture transformation topic is very interesting, because it looks forward, but also it brings many of the elements of the 59 briefings we had so far, which had covered, the main drivers in our sector. I will, in the closing remarks, I will just make some very quick figures and on those briefings. So today, what we want to look at is, are the food systems at risk, and if they are, what do we need to, to fix them eventually? We have now a new combination of risks and trends, as you know: climate crisis, conflicts, resource scarcity, inequality, food insecurity, malnutrition, environmental degradation, and which affects more importantly the rural communities and farmers. And I'm very pleased that the farmers who have been always with us in the ones we organize in Brussels and the regional are represented by the president of the Pan-African Farmers Organization here, which I have known many years ago as a young woman entrepreneur. So I'm glad that the private sector and the policy come together. So the drivers of change we would like to discuss today are, of course, economic. What about markets, growth, consumption preferences, technological developments, but also demographic? What do we do with the population increase and all the jobs that have to be created, in particular in Africa, which in one way or other would have to be linked to the agriculture and food sector? And environmental, you wouldn't agree with me that all the climate change, but also soil degradation, water scarcity. We had recently one actually on agroecology, which was very interesting, and all the factors of peace and security, which we'll not cover here. So the speakers, the very high-level speakers we have today, will talk about how the food system has to be profitable, how it has to be inclusive and benefit the society, and how it has to be positive for the natural environment. What type of innovative tools we need, and how to reduce, of course, the levels of hunger and malnutrition, which unfortunately are not looking very good despite many efforts. The few questions that we will pose would be what food choices consumers can make and want today, because the markets are very much also driven by the consumers, what educations and awareness actions are needed, what policies we need in place to discourage unhealthy consumption, which technologies can help us to a better use of resources, what knowledge we need in the future of the sector, which will be completely different in terms of skills needed by the farmers and the value chain actors, and what incentives we need to have this transition to food systems. So without more delay, we have introductory remarks. Due to some logistic factors, we have a bit of a different setup, also not too much. After the introductory remarks by the co-organizers, we will have a panel with the 6 panelists talking about the future of the food and agriculture, which will be in one panel. There will will ask some people to move from the table to allow the speakers to be there. And we will have a coffee break, and the second panel will be more the interaction with the audience and the speakers, and of course, among the speakers and with the audience. So that's a bit the fact. Don't forget that you have a coffee break and that you have a lunch to, interact more than in a bilateral basis. I thank very much already all the speakers. They all came in one form or the other to previous. My neighbor, Shonda Clean from the World Economic Forum, came to one of the very first as Yara. So thank you. You haven't changed, by the way, but I don't know how they do. I mean, but thank you very much for coming again. Yes, Patrick Caron came in a recent one on the SDGs, a very successful one. So Elizabeth Hall. So I thank you very much to join us in this one as well. So without any more delay, SG. Patrick Gomes is the Secretary General of the ACP Group, so the African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries represented here in Brussels at the level of ambassadors, but you are in the same room where ambassadors meet, ministers meet, head of states meet, so please take it as a great, advantage and welcoming. I knew you previously as ambassador in Brussels. You are the Secretary General now for, 5 years. You have been previously professor in many high universities in your region in the Caribbean, but you have been also working with UN systems and others. And I thank you very much because despite all these positions, which have been bigger and bigger, you have treated me always in the same manner. Thank you so much and welcoming us in the same way. Thank you, SG.
Well, thank you so much, Isolina, and good morning to everyone. I'm sorry that the truck is outside my house waiting for the package because I'm leaving on Sunday, and I thought I mixed up Wednesday and Friday. Today's Wednesday, is it? Anyway, first of all, I'm happy to be here and to welcome you to the ACP. When I see Oxfam here, and I recall in 2005 our battle on the cut in the price of sugar, and we had to be demonstrating with the Polish farmers. I want to say, though, how much we appreciate this precise and this particular rural briefing and this program that the CTA has done. It is a remarkable success, and I want to pay tribute, of course, to Mr. Hailu, the director of CTA, and also the Commission and all the supporters and the organizers, but in particular, Isolina. This is your baby that you have nurtured and brought to such great maturity. It is not a 60-year-old baby, but it is one that I hope will continue for another 60 years, despite the fact that the CTA, as it is currently constituted, will come to an end as part of the Cotonou Agreement. It has been a joint institution, the joint supervising authorities of the Commission and the ACP, group of states, are not able to see it, but we have some transitional measures. But we also have ongoing now the negotiations for post-Cotonou. And I must say that in that area, significant progress is being made on sustainable economic inclusive growth and development, the driving of our transformation of our economies, and agriculture and rural development will play a significant part. So we will see how we can reconfigure the great experience, the depth, the knowledge, and also this participation, this partnership that you have lived under the CTA, and particularly in the Brussels briefings, is something that we capture as a great prize and a great contribution that has been made to the stage at which the CTA has reached now, to which the ACP and the CTA has reached. So we look forward to continuing it in a new form. I therefore want to say also that we will rely very much on the insights and the knowledge that accumulates here, capital accumulation in the form of human capital, in the form of knowledge capital, of science and technology capital, must drive our economies to make greater progress with the Sustainable Development Goals. The first of which is ending poverty in all its forms everywhere, and we subscribe to that. The new post-Cotonou Agreement is in fact embedded in looking at how we are addressing the Sustainable Development Goals, and then we come, of course, to food and hunger. Therefore, your role and the participation that you've given to us in the ACP is deeply appreciated, and I wish it to continue. We will look at the form it will. I regret that I cannot stay, but I know that, in fact, the person who nurtures this department in our Assistant Secretary General, Mr. Nusunu, is here, and he will continue to be part of the proceedings for today. But all success, and again, thank you very much for the contribution you've made. Thank you.
Thank you very much, SG, and thank you for, despite all the problems you have, logistically speaking, to join us. I thank the Assistant Secretary General sitting now in your place, Vivanu Nyasunu, who has been our interlocutor at the technical level as he's heading agriculture, trade, and rural development in general. He will be also moderating a panel, so thank you very much for being with us here. And I also have known you in the policy side and the private sector side. So it's always very good to have the both parts. Without more transition, I give the floor to the other strong organizer who has, of course, also allowed this and anything that CTA has done to happen, is the European Commission, DEFCO in particular, but always in a very strong relationship with trade, agriculture, health, all the other matters which are important. Leonard Mizzi is the head of the unit which handles rural development and has very big, agendas as well, climate change, trade, etc. I knew him in his previous capacity at DG Agriculture, looking also at the markets. Another person who hasn't changed in all these years, to me, and has always been extremely supportive to these briefings and any other activity. You will have detailed biography, but you will see that his background is very much on trade and markets, but has covered a number of international organizations, UN, and also in his own country, Malta, together with the EU, many roles in the EU. Thank you very much, Leonard, for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. And first of all, thank you to the ACP and to Patrick and to Vivanu for hosting so many Brussels briefings. This is your house as well. I think when I was in contact with Isolina way back 13 years ago when I joined the Commission, the Brussels briefing was always the brand. So an important brand of multi-stakeholder discussion, where private sector, CSOs, NGOs, different parts of the Commission services, the ACP, the ambassadors from the ACP, farmers' organizations from the EU, used the ACP House to meet, to exchange, sometimes to debate strongly, but at the end, we always had a convergence of positions, and the accumulation of knowledge of the past years, with the culmination of today's briefing, is clearly a testimony of all the work that you, Isolina, with Michael, and with all of us around the table, because I see a lot of faces who have, through the years, contributed significantly to the Brussels briefings and the knowledge that was accumulated. I think today is a historic day, because it's maybe a sad day because it brings an end to the cycle, but we clearly can capitalize on what has been achieved, and clearly this will need to be injected in the years to come with all the processes that we will confront this year. This year will be a busy year. We have a new Commission, new Parliament, and we are already feeding not only Commission services, but also Member States and MEPs, the members of the European Parliament, with all the knowledge that the Brussels briefing has accumulated, not least, for example, the topic of agroecology. The event we did a few weeks ago is clearly an area where CTA has injected a lot of knowledge, and I just came from the Salon de l'Agriculture. Clearly, that topic will gain much more importance under the EU Green Deal. Areas around digital, the work that was done with Michael's leadership and Dahlberg in the past months was also injecting an area where there's still somewhat hype around it, but I think it gives a bit of signals where opportunities between GSM or artificial intelligence or blockchain, how it can unleash the full potential for the benefit of inclusive growth, private sector development, climate change. I can list a whole list of issues where throughout the years CTA has not only identified topical areas, but brought to the fore good cases, also young leaders, because at the end, the future of agriculture and the future of agricultural growth will be based on whether we can attract new blood in the sector and also encompass also the gender dimension. So for me, having Elizabeth on my right-hand side is clearly also a clear signal that we want to continue building up on what we achieved in the Brussels briefings in close collaboration with the key stakeholders in the ACP world, of which farmers' organizations and women leaders should be also at the core. This week also marks a meeting tomorrow in Addis of the College to College. The College to College, for those who are not Brussels insiders, is the meeting between the College of Commissioners from the EU side and the College of Commissioners from the African Union side. And tomorrow will mark a bit the phase of a new cycle of discussions, also in view of next week's publication of the EU, the Africa strategy, where clearly what we are going to discuss today will be at the core. You can't tackle the challenges around climate change, around humanitarian development peace. In the last weeks, we had the big locust crisis in the Horn of Africa, where we are going to respond quite big amounts, and hopefully this will be announced tomorrow. And there will be the need for more mobilization. On the 2nd of April in Rome, we will have the launch of the 2020 report on the global food crisis. This is our thermometer of where hotspots are, and the signals are clearly not extremely positive. As you know, in the last 4 years, hunger numbers are increasing, shocks are increasing, vulnerability is increasing, so we need also to create those tools to actually help farmers and farmers' organizations become more resilient to such shocks. I can't also not speak about nutrition. This is also a topic which the Brussels briefing has tackled. Nutrition is, and I see Fabrice here, who has contributed a lot with the Eat Lancet process. The debate out there is clear that the food system needs a rethinking, but everyone speaks about a broken food system, but the solutions of a broken food system, how to actually transform that food system, are not easy solutions, because you enter into issues like protein consumption, meat consumption, issues of how do you handle deforestation around soya, palm, livestock. There is clearly a debate in the EU around the EU Green Deal on imported deforestation, deforestation-free value chains. All this is adding to the complexity of solutions, because let's be clear, food systems is a complex topic, but I think also the Brussels briefings has tried to disentangle and dissect this complexity and come up with pathways. I'm not saying solutions, because there is no quick fix, clearly pathways of where we can head, and nutrition being a core topic, also because of the high levels of stunting and wasting, but also obesity and overweight in the world. Clearly, the end of this year will also mark a new cycle of the Nutrition for Growth, with the big event which will take place in Tokyo just after the Tokyo Olympics. So I think even there, the wealth of information that the Brussels briefing have contributed can also give a clear idea of what we can actually propose in the area of nutrition. And last but not least, the private sector. Even in Paris, when you had a configuration similar to this, you have still those skeptics which say, no, we don't want the private sector. But the private sector is also the farming community. small farmer organizations, small producers organizations. There is still this dichotomy between non-private sector and private sector, with still negative connotations on what private sector should be. Clearly, the public sector, we as the donor community, can't transform the food system on our own. We need an inclusive private sector. We need our European financial institutions. And we have also discussed within the Brussels briefings what type of private sector, what type of investment. Now we will have a new taxonomy on sustainable finance. And I think also this area of sustainable finance, impact funding, and why financial institutions still find it very difficult to invest in agricultural value chains, which are inclusive, which are equitable. I think I can't continue insisting more on the equity dimension, on the inclusive dimension, because we speak about growth, fine, but growth is not symmetrical across the value chain. And we need to make sure that farmers and farmers' organizations get a fair share, and there is a rebalancing of the value chain in the interest of farmers and farmers' organizations. Without further ado, so a final thank you to Michael, who has steered CTA in the past 10 years. So thank you, Michael, for all your hard work. But today, in particular, given that this is a Brussels briefing, I want to show and that we all give a show of thanks to Isolina, because Isolina was the pillar, remains the pillar of the Brussels briefings, and without Isolina and her team's hard work, we would not have these high-quality Brussels briefings. And I would like maybe that a colleague of mine, Lara, we give you a show of thanks to appreciate all the work that you have done.
I have to give to the brave Felix, who is working. It's a mini team been given. So Felix, I share it with you as well. Thank you very much. That was unexpected. Thank you very much. I think, you know, it's too generous, but anyway. Thank you very much, Leonard. Thank you. I would thank the people at the end in the concluding remarks, but you have your deputy, I think he's here, Wim. I don't know where Wim is. Wim Olthoff is somewhere. Wim Olthoff is the deputy of your unit, and is the one that have started the briefings in 2007 with as well, and it has been really instrumental. When you talk about, there are so many people in the room, when you talk about the farmers, of course, and strongly working with them, I was very glad to tweet this morning, very early, I think the director of COLE-ACP somewhere behind me, a new agreement you have with COLE-ACP as well, to support all the strategic, you know, development of the Pan-African Farmers Organization. I was so pleased, really, that this is working. And when you mention big crises like locust, and of course, the director of FAO is here, FAO Brussels. You know, FAO is critical for that. In that context, I have to say that we have little time, so we couldn't accommodate all at the speaking place, but there is, in the room, the director of South-South Cooperation, Dr. Tang. I haven't been the pleasure next to you. And because yesterday there was a very successful event organized by the ACP Secretariat on South-South Cooperation. So thank you so much, and you will intervene as well this morning, giving us some insights on the topic and, you know, perhaps some of the lessons from yesterday. So to close the introductory remarks, I give the floor to Mr. Hailu. Leonard has already said, 10 years of tenure. I think you finish on Friday. I would like, on my left, to introduce you Dr. Ibrahim Kadar, who will be the new director from Monday. He's a colleague who has been as almost many years as me at CTA in different capacities. He's heading today the learning and monitoring evaluation, which is very critical for us. I remember this morning that I thought at some point the Brussels briefings on the budget budgetary administration were under you in one of your previous jobs, and it was always very supportive. You have come to some of them, so thank you for coming from Wageningen, because actually CTA is based in the Netherlands, in Wageningen. Mr. Hailu?
Good morning, everyone. Well, thank you very much for joining us on this occasion, special occasion, which is the last of the Brussels briefings. This is an end of an era. You know, it's been incredibly successful and useful for the agricultural and food systems community. And also for CTA, this has been one of the strong brands that we have, which we have been very proud of hosting for many years. It has been an excellent opportunity to bring together, as Leonard was saying, a wide range of stakeholders together, you know, from farmers' organizations, policymakers, private sector, and so on. This is also marks, in a way, the end of more than 35 years of work for CTA, which is, well, as you can imagine, is a sad occasion for many of us, being staff as well as many of the partners who have been receiving incredible amount of messages. Once we announced that CTA will be closing at the end of the Cotonou Agreement in December 2020, we have received incredibly moving messages from many of our partners, young people who have benefited from the various interventions, the farmers' organizations, institutions, and so on. So it really shows how much work has been done, how much contribution CTA in partnership with many of you here has been able to achieve. And we really hope that the work that has been done so far will be taken forward by our partners and other institutions. So knowledge, technology, and innovation, of course, are key elements in achieving the agriculture and food system transformation. And engagement of different stakeholders is also critical in making sure that this transformation happens. And it's indeed in this area that CTA has been working on, really, to promote knowledge exchange, information exchange, identifying innovations and making them accessible to different stakeholders. Our mission has very much been focused on transforming, smallholder agriculture to make it into a vibrant, modern, and sustainable business that creates value for farmers, entrepreneurs, youth, and women, and produces affordable and nutritious food for all. So we have really believed in investing in technology and innovation as key in addressing not only the climate crisis, but also ensuring that we achieve food and nutrition security. So we have done a lot of work in many different areas. We have really covered the whole range of topics, but very much CTA's focus has always been making knowledge and information easily accessible, facilitating stakeholder dialogue and engagement, and also identifying especially digital innovations. For many years we have really tracked different kinds of digital innovation and making sure that they can be leveraged to improve smallholder agriculture productivity and resilience. We have recently shown through our study that the potential in this area is untapped market of about $2 billion just in sub-Saharan Africa. So there is a huge opportunity for private sector investment in this area. So this is one of the key contributions of CTA over the years. As I said, we have done a lot of work around value chain development, around climate smart agriculture, and so on. But very much the work has been centered on leveraging technology, especially digital technology. To give you an example, we have this big network of drones for agriculture that we have been working on more than 20 countries in Africa, where it's now created opportunities for many young innovators to develop their own businesses and to provide services. We are very proud that for the first time in Ethiopia, through CTA's support, the Ministry of Agriculture and the Agricultural Transformation Agency have introduced the use of drones in agriculture, and now it's really being scaled up to help smallholder farmers track their farms and use of inputs and productivity of crops. So there is a huge interest. I mean, we're just introducing small innovation, but it's being taken up to a large scale by the governments and private sector in these countries. Also in the Caribbean and Pacific, we have been introducing the use of blockchain for agricultural purposes. So we have a number of examples that we could give: index insurance in livestock and so on in Eastern and Southern Africa, again also using these innovations. So in terms of knowledge exchange, CTA has been, if you talk to anybody in extension in Africa or in government departments in Africa, many of you will tell you, oh, I have been using CTA publications, CTA materials when I was studying in college or when I was doing my research. We got incredible examples of people how they have picked up information from one of CTA's publications and set up businesses. So everywhere we go for 35 years, CTA has been a reliable source of information and advice and capacity building, training, and so on. You find more than 20,000 people in just between 2012 and 2019 that have benefited from different kinds of our training services and facilities. So of course the Brussels development briefings has been, as we heard this morning, an incredibly valuable platform that has serviced more than 8,000 people have participated in this program. And over 350 organizations have also participated. And you could imagine the networking opportunities that this has provided. And from those networks, different kinds of partnerships and projects have been developed. And we get a lot of feedback in this area. So as the Secretary General said, hopefully, some of this can be built on and developed further. So I think also Leonard mentioned it earlier, our focus has been very much on promoting youth entrepreneurship, inclusion of women in agribusinesses. So we have developed different kinds of services, to support specifically young people to take advantage of technologies. Our well-renowned Pitch AgriHack program, which has supported more than 1,500 youth to get access to technology and develop businesses and startups that have become, many of them have become fairly successful, is one example. I think that's being replicated everywhere now. So overall, we feel that we have achieved a lot. We are proud of our legacy, and we are very sure that many of what we have started and we have developed will be continued by other people. So of course, things come to an end for different reasons, decisions. Nothing continues forever. So we recognize why CTA has to close, given the circumstances and the decisions that have been taken at a higher level. But the sense throughout CTA, within the staff and across our partners, is sense of achievement, sense of pride, and really commitment to help that some of this work can be carried on and continued by our partners. So we are incredibly grateful to the support that we have received from the EU, continuous funding for so many years. This is an incredible support, which we really appreciate. And I would like to convey that on behalf of our colleagues and our partners through Leonard, through you. We also very much appreciate the support that we have been given by the ACP group, always committed to CTA, always appreciating the work that has been done and providing us all kinds of support that we needed. So we are extremely grateful for that. We very much appreciate the partnership that we have received from each and every one of you for coming to these briefings and for supporting us in this briefing. So, and I would like to thank my colleague Isolina also, of course, as we have heard already. She has been leading this program very effectively and as an effective networker and making sure that the timely topics are identified and promoted through these programs. And behind her, there are lots of people, supporting this. And CTA has always given a priority to this briefing, and we have put all our resources and facilities, at the disposal of the briefings, making sure that it continues to be successful. And personally, I have enjoyed very much being part of these briefings. I don't remember missing more than maybe a few of these briefings in the last almost 10 years that I have been here. I have always been a very strong supporter of these briefings because I see the value, I see the interest, I see the commitment that people have, and within a short period of time, how much information and knowledge can be garnered from these sessions, but also the opportunity that you get to meet other people, to to create connections and to carry forward different activities. So I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity, and as this will be my last week at CTA, I like to thank everyone really for their support, and I'll be very much still within the development community, so I hope I'll have the opportunity to meet you and see you again in the future. So thank you very much for all the support.